It's time to put your health in your own hands. Get ready to learn from today's top health and wellness innovators and thought leaders on Optimal Health Radio. Now, here's your host.
Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Tami Patzer, and I'm really excited because today we have Dr. Robert Hanopole, Dr. Rob, with us today, and he is practicing in Plantation, Florida, and he's been around since 1995. So in the past 28 years, he's helped thousands of patients solve their health challenges through non-invasive methods, including chiropractic care, physiotherapy, anti-aging, and regenerative offerings, and deep tissue laser therapy. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into the Relief Now laser methods, which is a class 4 laser. So just put your ears out and be listening for that. But let me continue. Dr. Rob is a graduate of the University of Maryland and Life Chiropractic College, and he is constantly seeking, learning, and providing new treatments and technologies to meet his goal to help patients ditch the drugs and skip the scalpel. I think that's so important. He resides in, of course, beautiful sunny South Florida with his wife, Stacy. And I love this. He has 2 young adult offspring, Haley and Jake, who are pursuing their passions. That's a good way to say it.
I didn't know if I was going to call them children or kids because they're
young adults.
They're not kids anymore, but they're also young adults, right? Exactly. Yeah.
So that's really fun to think of it that way because our children grow up so fast, but they're always our children.
Right.
So Dr. Rob, he actually is someone who walks the talk, and he's very active, and he does daily CrossFit, healthy eating, and of course, mindfulness practices. His passion is to help others live their true potential in health, mind, heart, and soul. He's also the CEO of a national group of forward-thinking doctors dedicated to helping patients without drugs and surgery called the Laser Masters. So welcome, Dr. Rob.
Thanks, Tami. That was a very comprehensive background.
Well, I know that even though I've said a lot about you, tell me a little bit more about why you decided to add class 4 laser methods to your practice.
Okay. Well, I would have to say it really started many years ago when I was about 27 years old. I was actually still in school. Okay. And I got very sick. Had some kind of crazy, debilitating arthritis that was never really properly diagnosed. Could hardly get out of bed. When I got out of bed, I would feel like I was walking on hot glass, literally tears in my eyes, trouble making a fist. My knuckles were like golf balls. One rheumatologist said I had Reiter syndrome. Another said psoriatic arthritis. And another one said rheumatoid arthritis. And they all said, you're going to be on medication. And one said, I don't care about your holistic background or philosophy. You'll be on medication for the rest of your life. So, whenever I hear somebody tell me something like that, I'm really, very much, I don't want to say a rebel, but I don't like to take things at face value. And I like to find out for myself. I would say I'm a critical thinker and a free thinker. That's why I choose the path, that I've chosen. And, I found a way, to get healthy. It took me a couple of years, but I fully 100% regained my health. I wasn't on medication for the rest of my life. I maybe took anti-inflammatories for 2 weeks. That was it. Went through, a real painful period, but I got healthy. But that really got me on a journey towards always, trying to find, natural and more high tech non-invasive solutions for health. And when lasers, started to become popular, they were what was called class 3 lasers. And class 3 lasers use the same wavelength, but they're not as powerful. But that was all that was available at the time. And I had a real yearning, to learn, how to help people heal and help myself heal. And I thought lasers were fascinating. I also thought, the physics involved, and it was just interesting to me. And then when the higher power class 4 lasers, became more popular, took me to another level. And the results that we have seen have been unbelievably incredible, which is why we developed, not only, do we have a practice in South Florida, Plantation Laser Pain Center, but we developed an international organization called the Laser Masters. And we help doctors all over the world to help their patients with laser therapy.
So your own health led you to, of course, trying to find something. So I just want to backtrack a little bit on that.
Sure.
What is it that you actually did do to help improve that arthritis that you thought you had, let's say, or what they thought you had?
Right. So, look, let's look at it. Any disease, think of the word disease, dis-ease, lack of ease. Okay. So any disease is really the body not functioning the way it's supposed to function. What happens is, the first thing that happens is that, there is a lack of function. And then after a lack of function, there is some type of symptom involved. And then we look at a group of symptoms and we classify the symptoms, and we then call it a specific disease. We give it a name, we give it a diagnosis. Okay. And, when I first had the issue, it was so debilitating and so disconcerting, and I had to drop out of school. My parents were really upset. They said, you're going into a field where you're helping people and you have to use your hands, and you're not even able to use your hands. I couldn't even make a fist. So I went the traditional medical route. And again, it was drugs. And literally I took the anti-inflammatories for 2 weeks and realized that was not the answer, because it was just addressing the outward symptom. It wasn't addressing the cause of the problem. So I finally found a doctor that was a functional medicine doctor. And he actually practiced chiropractic, functional medicine. He was an epidemiologist, master's in public health. And he saw in his own practice, really the worst of the worst of the worst, chronic degenerative type of cases. And, I put a lot of trust in him. He helped me get healthy. And really, the journey that I took was looking at the cause versus treating the symptom. And what he taught me was that the causes of, the majority of diseases, the majority of symptoms that people suffer from is stress, but not the kind of stress that we all think about. That's only part of it, because there's 3 types of stresses. We have chemical stress, which is the air that we breathe, the food that we eat, viruses, bacteria, causes stress on the system. We have emotional stress. We all know what that is, right? Frustration, anger, fear. These days, especially the last few weeks, I know everybody is on edge and everybody's on emotional stress, with what just happened in the Middle East. So it's a very stressful time emotionally. Okay. And then physical stress, which would be chronic repetitive motions, uncomfortable positions throughout the day, too much sitting, too much standing, not enough sleep. You combine those 3 types of stresses And if they're high enough, or even if one area is high enough, it's going to cause dysfunction in the body. And over time, that dysfunction is going to lead to symptoms. So that's really what happened with me. If you would say the highest on the scale of each level of stress is 100, I was 150. All right. I'm not going to get into all the issues, but I was just, I was in school. I wasn't eating healthy, drinking too much caffeine, not getting enough sleep, going through a terrible relationship. I mean, I was off the charts, and something had to give, and I lost my health. My body just couldn't take it anymore. And I really believe that we all have a certain genetic strengths and weaknesses and certain predispositions for certain type of symptoms, okay, and disease patterns. And I believe that when my mind and my body and my spirit and my soul and my heart got so stressed out that my body expressed this arthritis, okay? And then when I even looked at it from a more spiritual standpoint, it was very interesting. I was reading some of Louise Hay's books. I say now it was the greatest gift that I was ever given, because it made me a much better practitioner, a much better healer, much better at really being compassionate and empathetic and understanding what patients need, because I went through it myself. Okay. So I really feel it was a gift. And it also inspired me to read, a lot of different books: Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, all these books on mind, body, healing, Bruce Lipton, you name it. I started really searching. Okay. And then I realized, arthritis, my joints all getting stiff and constricted and restricted. Well, at that point in my life, I was actually feeling very, very, very restricted. I felt like I didn't have a lot of freedom. And I kind of, in an esoteric way, I feel that my body expressed itself physically what I was feeling emotionally.
Well, I wanted to ask that because I think that what you're talking about is really important for people who are thinking about health in general and about traditional medicine. They always are, like you said, they always push the drug or the surgical aspects, and sometimes they don't address, like what you're talking about, the mind, the body, the soul, the heart,
the cause,
the whole body. So I think that's really good for just to kind of help people to get to know you a little bit better, so that they can understand. And I agree that empathy, if you're going to be helping people, you do need to be able to empathize, can't even talk, with them, so that they can feel that you get them. I think that's one of the big issues with many doctors. So with that, again, I want to pull us back into this class for laser, because it's been around a while, but it seems to be gaining in popularity, and there's a lot of pluses. So what are some of the things that the class 4 laser can really help people with?
So much. Okay. Because the way that I explain laser to patients is that the human body is made up of cells. Okay. And we all have approximately 70 trillion cells. In areas where we have cells that are not functioning optimally, the body can't heal. It's not working properly, okay? Because cells are actually the batteries of the body. Cells produce energy in the form of ATP. So when patients have chronic injuries, chronic pain, chronic neuromusculoskeletal pain. So it could be, musculoskeletal, like tennis elbow, knee pain, foot pain, shoulder pain. It could be nerves involved, like peripheral neuropathy. There could be herniated discs, things of that nature, spinal problems. Generally, where there's a chronic issue, meaning it's been there for a long time, the body can't heal it because the body is a self-organizing, self-maintaining, for the most part, a self-healing system. Okay? I mean, think about how miraculous the body is, right? If you get a paper cut, what happens a couple days later? It's not there anymore. Okay? You scratch yourself, right? It's not there anymore a couple days ago. But if you scratch your car, it's not going to heal itself. Okay? The body is a self-organizing, self-maintaining, self-healing system. The body is always producing new cells and getting rid of old cells. When the body's functioning properly, it's a well-oiled machine. But what happens is there's times when cells are not functioning optimally, and it's like a battery needing a charge. So when we apply the laser to the areas where the cells are not functioning optimally, they absorb specific biostimulative wavelengths of light. The term is called photobiostimulation, or the newer term is photobiomodulation, okay? But we're using actually healing wavelengths of light in the near infrared and infrared spectrum that have specific attributes that have positive effects on the body, because the cells, if you remember, Tami, if you remember biology class, remember the word mitochondria and organelle? Yeah. Okay? And they used to tell you all the time, the mitochondria is the powerhouse, the power plant of the cell. Okay? Well, the mitochondria in the cells, they actually have solar panels or light receptors called chromophores. And the chromophores that we're specifically targeting is called cytochrome C oxidase. So the laser light penetrates very deep into the body, into the cells that are functioning suboptimally, and through a photochemical reaction, very, very similar to what you'd see with sunlight in plants, like photosynthesis, that light gets converted into cellular energy. ATP is produced, and those cells are getting charged. And now the body starts to function optimally, and it starts to heal. So laser actually speeds up the healing process. It increases cellular metabolism. Okay, it helps to develop new cells. So, in my opinion, laser is an energetic form of what we call regenerative medicine. So when people talk generally about regenerative medicine, they're talking about things like injections of platelet-rich plasma or stem cell injections. I have found, we used to do that in our office, but I have found personally that laser's been more effective. So when I use laser, or one of my staff uses the high power class 4 laser on a patient, the way that I explain it as an analogy or a metaphor is that we're giving them an injection, a painless injection of laser energy versus an injection of chemistry. And it's going to help to speed up the healing process, just like the other forms of regenerative medicine.
That's really interesting, because I don't think I've heard it explained quite like that before. I really like the analogy with the battery and the solar panels, because you can actually see that in your mind, and it's very easy to understand, especially, photosynthesis, because most of us, I do recall biology,
yeah.
And I remember that. And that's also interesting when you're talking about it being similar to the stem cell injections or that other type of thing, because those literally are like where they take your own blood and spin it and then re-inject you with those stem cells. But what you're saying is that the laser is actually a non-invasive way to get the same or similar results. So the whole idea is to regenerate this sick part of your body so that it can go back to being optimal and heal itself. That
Exactly.
I really like that. So again, it's all about the drug-free and surgery-free. So how is it, do you have trouble, I'm really curious, with people believing that they actually can get this regenerative healing with lasers without drugs or surgery? Do you have any people who are like, oh, it can't be it, it has to be a drug or it has to be surgery? Or are they just relieved that there is something like this?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if it's they don't believe. I think they just haven't been exposed to it. So it's just not something they've ever really thought about. And that's the reason why I communicate it in a way that is so relatable, so patients can really have a better understanding. Because if I explain laser from, a really, hard science standpoint, I'd put people to sleep. So I have to explain it in a way that, it just makes more sense. And when I explain it that way, I don't really have a lot of resistance or pushback. But when if a patient is a little bit skeptical, I will provide a sample treatment, to a patient, just to show them that nothing I do in the office is ever going to hurt or harm them. The laser is painless. The only thing the patient may feel is a little warmth or heat, which is actually very soothing. And that actually becomes an issue, because I have to explain to patients that just because it feels soothing and there's heat doesn't mean we got to keep on doing more than the recommended dose. Okay? Because I have patients all the time that tell me, oh, that feels so good on my shoulder. Can you give me another 10 minutes? And I tell them I can't. I know that it feels good. You could put a hot pack on there or something, but I don't want to give you too much of a dose of the laser energy. You have to look at this as a dose, just like you're giving the patient an injection. Okay? And there's no more value in getting a needle injection if after all of the liquid in the syringe is injected, there's no more value in leaving the needle in there any longer. Okay? So there's no more value in giving, more laser energy than's needed. So, afterwards, if they like the heat, then I'll recommend, a hot pack or, moist heat, something like that. But it's not therapeutic, but it feels therapeutic. Okay? But we'll do a sample. I'll show them, again, nothing we do will ever hurt or harm them. It feels nice. I definitely let them know not to expect any major change after that first treatment. Okay? Because, that would be a complete miracle. Okay? I mean, if every patient had one little sample laser treatment and they healed, I would have a line from my office to Dubai. We wouldn't need an office in Dubai. Okay. But that's not how healing works. But patients generally get very good results in a short period of time.
So when you say that, so what is typically the minimum effective dose on a laser treatment? And how many times would you expect somebody to need to have laser treatment, and how far in between treatments should it be?
I love that you use that word, the term minimal effective dose. I say that all the time. I tell every patient what's the least amount of treatment that we need to get the most maximal results in the shortest amount of time, and it ends up costing you the least amount of money, and you don't have to see me that much. Okay? I don't like when any patient has to see me more than my wife and my kids. All right. It shouldn't be that way. All right. So to answer your question, every patient wants to know 4 things. Okay. What's my problem? Can you help me? what's it going to cost, and how long is it going to take. Okay. So in terms of how long is it going to take, every patient says, how many treatments do I need? I tell every patient the same thing. I don't know. Because I would be disingenuous in telling them I knew exactly how many treatments they need. It would be like I had a crystal ball. Okay. And everybody is different. Tami, your physiology is different than mine, which is different than my wife's. That's different than Dr. Mike's. We all have a different history. We've had different injuries. Our bodies are different. Our nutrition is different. Our healing capacity is different. We have different genetics. So everybody heals at a different rate. So the way that I've overcome that is I've looked at really what I call the miracle cases, the cases that have had the most maximal results in the shortest amount of time, the unbelievable patients, and it's within 6 visits. So I use 6 visits as a baseline and a benchmark to then determine how many visits we need. Because if a patient tells me after 6 visits, they're 50% better, now I know what they need. If we determine the patient's 75, 80% better, now I know what they need. If they're 90%, if they're 20%, great. I have to tell you, though, that about 95% of the patients within the first 6 visits are moving in a positive direction. I just don't know if that's going to be 15% better or 95% better or 100%. Okay? So based upon their response to the first 6 treatments, then I can more accurately prognosticate what they need. But there would be no way that I can do that. And I know of centers, that I've spoken to, and I asked them how many visits do patients get, and they give me a number, and I will say, how do you know that? How do you have? There's not a one size fits all. Everybody is different, but I know it generally takes, based on experience, about 6 visits to have the miracle. I actually had one patient that it was really a true miracle. She had plantar fasciitis since 2006. She had 1 visit and literally danced out of the office. Yeah, I never saw anything like that. But we've had some amazing cases. I've also had a patient that came in. It was a nurse that I never met before. Her name was Karen. And she was in the reception area. And my staff came to me. I was in the back of the office, and they said, "Doc, you better come up front because we have a new patient here and she's crying." And I said, "Wow, we never had a new patient, come to the office with tears in their eyes. She must be in a lot of pain." And listen, thank goodness, Tami, I never had a patient leave the office crying. That would be bad too. But she said, "I'm not crying because I'm in pain physically, but I'm in a lot of emotional pain because I was just told I have to have 2 toes amputated." Exactly. But, what your expression, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was just told to have 2 toes amputated due to diabetic ulcers and peripheral neuropathy. And she said, "Do you think the laser could help?" Now, I love laser, and I will tell you, I'll give you, so much enthusiasm about it. But in this case, I do know that there are limitations of matter. There's certain things that, after a certain period of time, we may not be able to turn on those batteries, let's say, okay? But I told her, I said, "Look, I don't know if we're going to be able to help you, but let's give it a try." And after her first visit, she came in 24 hours later, and we both noticed the same thing. The ulcers actually looked a little different. Instead of being very dull, they actually had a little bit of a sheen. And I thought that was interesting. Maybe it's a little granulation tissue, maybe a little bit of the healing process. I wasn't sure. But I have to tell you, it was about 9 treatments and she completely healed. Completely healed. And her husband was so impressed that he became a really great friend of mine. And we go out to dinner and out to lunch, and he tells everybody the story. But that again was one of my miracle cases. Okay. But it really was interesting because usually with the laser, we're treating something internally, under the skin, some type of muscle or ligament or tendon or nerve. You really can't visualize, you can't see it. But with the diabetic ulcers, I was able to see on the outside how the body heals. And I can tell you case after case, even myself, I even had a tooth issue, an abscess over a root canal that wasn't healing. And the endodontist said, well, at this point, your body's not accepting it, and we're going to have to do an implant. So I was like, all right, let me think about it. I used the laser on it, on the gum, 5 days in a row. The abscess healed, never came back. X-rays were even taken later on, and it's perfectly healthy. So it speeds up repair and regeneration like nothing I've ever seen. I love it.
Well, I think both of those, well, your personal example, because I have a little bit of experience with mouth, and it is one of the hardest places to heal when you have anything going on in your mouth. And then of course the one with where you physically could see the ulcers on her, I take it was where her toes were that they were going to remove. And it just kind of makes it very interesting when you think about it. She was smart enough to seek out this alternative other than just saying, okay, cut my toes off. And I think you said it about yourself, about being a critical thinker and a free thinker, and I think that's really important, that everyone should think about their own health and not always just go yes to the first thing that somebody tells them, especially when it has to do with drugs or surgery, because there are other things that maybe they should check out. And it does take somebody who is able to think about, well, maybe I should go look at this or that or the other thing. So in your office with these lasers, you've talked about the diabetic neuropathy, the plantar fasciitis.
Fasciitis, yeah.
What other successes in different body parts? I imagine you work with a lot of athletes or golfers in South Florida. I imagine people who have those repetitive injuries. Right. What other things would you say somebody could probably benefit from class 4 laser therapy? Yeah,
I mean, any kind of, really, you think about any itis, right? All itis means is inflammation, right? So tendinitis and bursitis and knees, feet, shoulders, ankles, elbows, TMJ. See those all day long. Okay, all the chronic repetitive stress injuries, the athletic injuries, meniscus, knees, ligaments, you name it, we work with it. Post-surgical cases even we see, to help the surgeries heal faster, to reduce scar tissue formation. And then there's some conditions that I treat that I would say are more obscure conditions, like trigeminal neuralgia, which is the trigeminal nerve causing facial pain. Okay, and the trigeminal nerve is one of the cranial nerves. We get very good results with that. We've had a neurologist fairly recently refer in several patients with trigeminal neuralgia, Bell's palsy, okay, palsy of the face, shingles responds very well to laser therapy. So I call those the more obscure conditions. And then we have things like peripheral neuropathy, like diabetic neuropathy or idiopathic neuropathy, where patients are starting to really, lose the feeling in their legs and their feet, and they can't drive. And these things lead eventually to they're on gabapentin, and then it leads to more medication. It leads to amputation. Okay. And like I told you about the patient with her toes, and we were able to save her from amputation. So we see these peripheral neuropathy cases, herniated discs. We have a special treatment that we combine laser. We combine two treatments, and it's called non-surgical laser disc decompression. Okay. So we do non-surgical decompression. We combine it with laser. The decompression, it's a special, very high-tech, special table that actually helps to open up the disc spaces where there's disc herniations and disc bulges. And what it does is it actually assists to repair what's called the pumping mechanism, to help pump the discs with fluid, because the discs are the shock absorbers between the vertebrae. And once you lose the pumping mechanism, the disc starts to deteriorate and is much more susceptible to injury, bulges, herniations, things like that. And the table actually restores that pumping mechanism. I kind of liken it to, remember the old time cars where you had to crank them up, and then eventually you get the engine going. Well, that's what the table does to to those discs, to the vertebrae above and below the injured discs. It gets them pumping fluids, nutrients into the discs, and then it helps to extract and remove waste materials, because discs don't have a very good they don't have a blood supply. They don't have an artery bringing them nutrients and fluids and hydration, and they don't have veins taking anything out. So then we combine that and with the laser therapy. The other thing that the decompression does is it forms what's called, or causes a vacuum phenomenon, which actually causes a negative pressure inside the disc to help it also get sucked back in. So you're restoring the pumping mechanism. You're actually creating that vacuum phenomenon. And then we use the laser around the area, because generally where there's a herniated disc, then there's nerve involvement, and there's other soft tissue involvement and pain and inflammation. So we found that the combination of both has been a very, very, very effective treatment. And we've trademarked, non-surgical laser disc decompression.
Wow. That's really, I was just listening to that, and because that is something that I know a lot of people complain of, that back pain. And then when you also mentioned shingles, I thought that was interesting, because a lot of times I don't think people think there's anything they can do for that painful shingles. I know someone who just had shingles, and they went for like 3 weeks of excruciating pain. And, I don't think they did anything for it other than lose a lot of sleep.
There's so many conditions the lasers can help. Matter of fact, some of the lasers have pre-programs in there for over 3,000 conditions that can be treated. Different protocols, specific wavelengths, specific power, specific amount of time to really initiate that reparative and that regenerative process.
Wow, 3,000. I mean, sometimes, it's so hard to imagine that there's that many or more things that can go wrong.
We're doing some clinical trials in the office right now, just our own, little inside studies on a couple of patients that suffer from tinnitus. All right, the ringing and the humming in the ears. We have one patient that is a former rock and roller of a very, very famous band that everybody knows, but I can't say due to HIPAA regulations. But he suffers from chronic tinnitus from all that loud music. And so far, we've really had very good results in getting rid of what's called a hyperacusis. I think that's how you pronounce it, hyperacusis. And that's like if somebody drops a fork or something, they get this like really like this shock, like like it's just so loud to them. It's really very debilitating, to them. And also the humming and the the ringing in the ear has diminished, still has it. And it gets worse when he's under a lot of stress. But as we were talking earlier, right, how stress can aggravate things. But it still has been diminished, and, we're still working on it. I have another patient that just started with me that we're also testing, on tinnitus. And after about 3 or 4 treatments, he's already told me that it's less frequent. So with some of these conditions, where I don't know if we're going to get 100%, results, but if we can help somebody's quality of life by 30, 40, 50, 60, 70%, I see that as a big win.
It certainly is, because the quality of your life is what everyone is after. And I imagine that ringing in the ears or the buzzing or the humming, it probably drive you literally nuts, because it's just this constant invasion inside your head. I imagine that has to be one of the more painful things that you might be going through.
Well, a lot of the patients, Tami, again, if they have neuropathy and really, worst case peripheral neuropathy is amputation. So, if that's not bad enough, worst case scenario for tinnitus is suicide, because they can't take it. They can't take that ringing and that humming. It drives them nuts. So, that's the worst. So we're looking at conditions that really, where laser can make a huge impact on someone's life. They're even being tested right now on the brain for dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, with very, very promising results.
Well, that's good, because as we get older, we don't really know what we're looking at, and it's good to know that people are working on things to make your older years a lot better. So with that, so you can class 4 laser. You're doing your own clinical trials. How much science is there backing up class 4 lasers?
There is a ton. 900 or more published studies coming out all the time. When I was talking to you about tinnitus, really interesting study, double-blind, placebo-controlled study came out, showing the efficacy of laser and tinnitus. There's so many studies on so many different conditions. And there's going to be a lot more, because I really believe that we're moving in healthcare from a healthcare system that's been historically based on chemistry to healthcare that's going to be based on energy. I mean, just think about it. It's kind of interesting how, when you think about all these like TV shows we used to watch, things like Star Trek, right? What did Dr. McCoy used to use to heal tissue?
A
little red light. He had a little red light. He would shine on it and it would heal. All right. I mean, that's probably because, when they create these futuristic, movies, they probably look at things like popular science, and they look at like what is going to be next. And they were really on target with that. Okay. So, we're definitely moving towards more energy-based medicine than chemistry. There's laser beds right now. I would say they're laser, but they're light-based. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's phototherapy, photobiomodulation. They use LED, not laser, so it's not as powerful.
Not the red light therapy?
Yeah. But it immerses your body with actually, healthy red light.
Yes, I actually experienced that, and I definitely felt better. I had traveled from Florida, where I live is sea level, to Denver, and I was definitely feeling just the effects of that elevation difference. And somebody said, why don't you go ahead and lay down with this red laser? And I did, and I definitely felt better.
Yeah.
I was really thankful that I had that opportunity, because I really was feeling just off, real heavy and everything. So I think that's true. But it's interesting when you bring up the energy and all of the foreshadowing that our science fiction movies or shows like Star Trek, because, if you remember when they used to talk to the people on the different planets on the big screen,
Right.
basically
Right.
what we're doing right now is we're using a Zoom tool to talk to one another.
Or the Apple Watch, right? I make phone calls from my watch, Dick Tracy, right? Yeah. So, technology is just getting, better and better. And I really feel like a lot of the approaches are that we currently use are, in a sense, barbaric, and antiquated. And we have to look at, working with the body's own ability to heal, to function, to regenerate, to repair. Maybe we need to help it along. Okay. But you didn't wake up this morning, Tami, and say, well, I'm going to be up for about 12 hours. I better wind up my heart for about, for the rest of the day and pump some air into my lungs. And, I better, make sure my liver's, doing thousands of functions. The body's a self-healing, self-organizing, self-maintaining system. Okay. It's a very intelligent system. And all we're doing is we're just adding some energy to it to help it along. We're not taking anything out. I don't believe that anybody was born with, a lack or deficiency of medication, a deficiency. Are you, when somebody has a headache, are they deficient in Tylenol? So they need Tylenol because they're deficient? No, there's something that's causing the headache. We should get to the root cause, right? They also don't think that we were born with too many body parts. All right. So it's okay to start taking parts out. Yeah, let's just get rid of that gallbladder. Okay. You don't need it. There's cases where people do need surgery. There's cases where people do benefit from medication. Okay. But I just think that there's just abuse and there's just too much. Okay. I had a friend that I was walking with another friend of mine, and he was telling us that he's having his gallbladder removed. When I was walking with the other friend, and he was just talking to us, and my other friend's a doctor, and we were like, well, why? He says, well, I just haven't been feeling good lately, and they're not sure what's wrong with me, so I think they should just remove my gallbladder. And he was so matter of fact about it. And his name was Barry. I said, Barry, do you not think that the gallbladder's there for a reason? It's not so inflamed right now, or it's not obstructed. There's not an issue where it's an emergency. Why are you okay with them taking out a body part of yours? And then I was with my other friend who is a doctor, and he said the same thing. So now Barry was basically confused. He's like, I can't believe both of you were telling me this. I was about to get this procedure done next week. And he called his doctor and said, let's hold off on that. And he's fine right now. All right. His body healed, so there are times when we need to, take extreme measures. I'm not saying we don't, but we really should always be looking at, the least invasive measures first before we go extreme. And unfortunately, a lot of patients will come to my office after they've already had surgery. We get so many, for instance, post-knee replacement, post-shoulder replacement. They're still having pain. Okay. So I help them, but what we also do is help patients to avoid it in the first place. I had one patient come to me. She was supposed to have a reverse shoulder replacement surgery. She was scheduled 3 weeks from the day she entered the office. And 2 weeks later, she canceled the surgery because she said, I now have my activities of daily life back. I can reach over to my night table. I'm not in any pain. Why am I rushing for surgery? Now, she still had degeneration and decay in her shoulder. I don't doubt that. but she didn't have any pain or discomfort, and it wasn't influencing her negatively in her daily life. So she didn't want to have the surgery. I had another patient driving 3 hours to the office each way to avoid hip surgery because he was told by a couple of orthopedic surgeons he needed hip surgery, and he was able to avoid the hip surgery. Okay. So we have a saying, ditch the drugs and skip the scalpel. That's our mission, and that's the mission with the group, that we created, with laser to, help the patients to avoid drugs and surgery if it's possible. Okay. And in many cases, I'd say most cases that we've seen, it really is. And then there's cases that need to take more extreme measures, and that's okay.
Well, I think that's what makes it really important is, like you said earlier, every person is different. And for some people, they don't need to do the surgery or take the drugs. This could help them to get their body back, recharge their body. And other people, maybe they do need to go the other route. But why wouldn't we all want to look at all of our options and make the best decision for
Right.
ourselves?
So and there's also, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. Well,
I was going to say, there's just also a lot of personal responsibility there too. For instance, if somebody is really going to look at their nutrition and their exercise and their rest and rejuvenation and their emotional well-being, and they're actually going to put some time and effort into that, then they're going to get better results. But if somebody just expects, someone from the outside to make them healthy, and they're still going to eat the French fries and onion rings and, the unhealthy fast food every day, and they're not going to exercise, and they watch, the news all day long of who robbed who, and, and all this negativity, and they're not going to do anything to, help themselves, then they become, victims of the system. And those are the patients that, they're not willing to do whatever it takes to be healthy. And, those are more of the patients, that will have to move towards drugs and surgery. The other patients that have to move towards drugs and surgery, obviously, are if it's a crisis or it's a trauma, you don't come to my office for laser. That's where we have the best system in the world for emergency care. Okay. But our best patients, our best results are patients that take personal responsibility, that, exercise, and again, are into nutrition and positive, emotions, and, really are active participants in their care. Okay. Too many people give that up to somebody else. They don't take personal responsibility. And then there's the patients that we, that also sometimes we can inspire, and inspire to make some of those positive changes. They realize that it's their personal, their personal responsibility to be healthy.
That all makes a lot of sense. So if somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah, well, they call the office. It's in Plantation, Florida, 954-423-0020. And they can always email. My last name is Hanopole, so the email address is dr and then hanopole@gmail.com. Or again, 954-423-0020. And we're always happy to provide a consultation with a patient. Let's first determine, what the issue is, and can we help you? That's the key. And if we don't think that we can help, we'll give you guidance in terms of other directions to go, other options, that may make a lot of sense. Because, I'm not going to take on a patient if I don't think that I can help.
Well, That makes a lot of sense, and I really appreciate that. Before I let you go, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I thank you for having me on today.
Thank you.
We're really building a movement to help people to ditch the drugs and skip the scalpel. If anybody, hears this and they're looking for someone to provide laser to them that may not be in Plantation, Florida, they can go to the website Relief Now Laser. That's LASER, reliefnowlaser.com. And there's a directory on there with a lot of, forward thinking, tuned in, turned on, doctors that want to help people to ditch the drugs and skip the scalpel. And that's a national directory, actually international at this point. Okay. Where you can find a doctor that, maybe, more convenient. Now we've had patients come to us, fly in from Bahamas, Jamaica, Haiti, Canada, drive 3 hours to the office. So patients will travel, for the treatment because we really provide a special service. But we have practitioners all over the country at reliefnowlaser.com that they can find, and they're going to get the same, level of service that we provide in our office. Okay. Also, just my website for our office is reliefnowlaserplantation.com.
Relief Now Laser Plantation. And if you want to check it out, go look at reliefnowlaser.com, and there's a nationwide or worldwide directory of doctors who are very well versed in class 4 laser methods, and they can help you. And again, Dr. Rob, I really appreciate your time. This is Tami Patzer, and this is Optimal Health.
You've been listening to today's top health and wellness innovators and thought leaders on Optimal Health Radio. To get more solid health and wellness information, visit optimalhealthradio.com.